Hi, and welcome back to this Free-for-All Friday edition Focal Point AFR Talk. Do not forget, we have apps for the iPhone, the iPad, and the Android, so you can listen to Focal Point on the go. We have audio and video streaming at afr.net. We have podcasts that are available. We post links to some of the key segments of the program on our Facebook page, Focal Point Facebook, a lot of different ways to access the information. Let's go to the phones. Got some people that have been waiting patiently. Let's go to Michael in Oklahoma. Michael, welcome to Focal Point. What's on your mind?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm doing well, sir. Hello?
Yes, go right ahead.
Yes, sir. I have a question and a comment. Let me start with the question first. The recent, decision the Boy Scouts came to, that had to do with admitting Boy Scouts who were admittedly gay. Am I correct in that, or was that had to do with the leadership?
That is correct. It's just scouts. So homosexuals can be in the scouting program. They can be scouts, but they cannot be leaders. They cannot be scout leaders. You can't have adult homosexuals leading a scout troop.
So then my next question was, if that's the case, so they're going by the legal definition of adult, 18 and older, correct?
That's correct.
So so that's one question I'm curious about in the Boy Scouts themselves before this is all brought to bear. I'm assuming, because my son was in the Scouts for a little while, and then we moved out of necessities, and I haven't gotten back into it. But anyway, what was their screening process before? Because I'm imagining that if you're 17, if anyone below the age of 18, I think most parents would agree, the kids can have a lot of different ideas and maybe misconceptions. So I'm thinking that age that everyone seems to be focusing on, 17. I'm not sure why that's any more special than, say, someone who's 12 or 15. Because, we all know that bad things can happen at any age and be done by, unfortunately, young children to adults.
Right. Well, and I think that's a good point, Michael. And John Stemberger, we had him on last hour, and he said, look, even the Boy Scouts will tell you that 70% of the abuse of Boy Scouts takes place at the hands of other teenagers. Now, it's not just sexual abuse. It could be physical abuse. But that includes sexual abuse. 70% of it is at the hands of other teenagers. So if you have a 17-year-old who is experienced, they can be very active at that age in the lifestyle. And so there's really then no layer of protection between the influence that individual can have on younger scouts. We've got this issue out, I think, is in Florida. I don't know if you followed this at all, but it's an 18-year-old woman who is now in legal trouble, and she ought to be, because she got involved in a sexual relationship with a 14-year-old girl. Now, they met in high school. They met playing volleyball together. She turned 18. They had developed this infatuation, apparently, while they were both underage, but now she turned 18, and at 18, the sexual relationship with the 14-year-old started. That's statutory rape. Now, feminists and homosexual activists are out there trying to make this 18-year-old perpetrator a martyr, trying to stir up all this kind of sympathy for her. Now, if it was an 18-year-old boy and a 14-year-old girl, there'd be no effort to make that happen at all. But here's my point. The relationship, the kind of emotional attachment started at age 17. The sexual relationship wasn't consummated until the older girl was 18. That's exactly the scenario that could be replayed over and over and over again in Scouts. And, teenagers are vulnerable. I'm looking at a story right here. You may be familiar with this new movie about the life of Liberace, who was flamboyantly homosexual. And there's a movie out that's airing on HBO. It was too gay for theaters, so they're just showing it on HBO. And it features his homosexual relationship with a male who is 47 years younger than he was. What HBO does not tell you is that the boy was 16 when this sexual relationship began. The movie covers over that completely, conceals it. If you didn't listen to Focal Point and AFR Talk, you wouldn't know this, that what Liberace was is he was a child molester. He was a pedophile. He was a statutory rapist. That's who Liberace was, because the boy was 16 when this started. And 16-year-olds, obviously, our last caller, Michael, was talking about that. They're vulnerable at that age. Kids are confused about their sexual identity. Their understanding of their own sexuality is growing. They're experiencing They're experiencing physical things and emotional things and mental things they've never dealt with before. So it can be a very confusing and vulnerable time. And Liberace took advantage of that and became a pedophile. That's what he was. He was a child molester, not a hero at all. And that's what this new organization is trying to prevent, what the Boy Scouts are going to permit here starting January 1. Let's go to Heath in Texas. Heath, welcome to Focal Point. What's on your mind?
Oh, Brian, thanks for taking my call.
You bet.
Just wanted, you had a young gentleman yesterday call in about the kind of the policies with young scouts being mixed in with the older scouts, and I was wanting to do some follow-up on that.
Yes,
I was involved with scouting myself, and then I'm now an assistant scoutmaster, and my son's involved with scouting. And basically what he has said is true. When young scouts come in, they are pretty well, they're made into their own patrol, or they're not mixed in with the older scouts until basically they get their first class badge. And that usually takes 2 to 3 years. And by that time, you're talking a child that gets in there about 12. So you're thinking about 14, 15 before they're kind of mixed in what they're considered. After they get their first class, they're considered an older scout.
Okay, so what that means then is you, at that point, you very well could have a 17-year-old in the same tent with, say, a 14-year-old.
You could, yes.
Yeah. And see, I think, frankly, and I appreciate what you're saying, and maybe that's true, Heath. I appreciate that, having the information. I think that's going to be small comfort to parents who have an 11-year-old son and a 14-year-old son. That may be a distinction without a difference for them. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, and what I'd like to add into that, a lot of the deals, like my son's involved, and he has just earned his first class. And myself personally, this issue over the homosexuality and allowing homosexual scouts in all honesty, is going to play very little into how scouting works today. And it has to deal with the parent involvement. And I'd also like to add in about, like with Cub Scouting. Heath, let me interject here. Let me just ask you a question. You're a father, and how old is your boy? He is 14.
He's 14. Now, are you telling me, Heath, that you honestly would be comfortable with a 17-year-old self-identified homosexual sleeping in the same tent, just the two of them, in the same tent with your 14-year-old son? You're perfectly comfortable with that. You got no problem with that. No concern about that.
I'm comfortable with it in the same realm as that, and I'll add right here, we don't want scouts to be sexual under any circumstances for anything. We don't want scouts to be having sex with young girls or women any more than we want scouts to be having sex with each other.
Well, now let me ask you a follow-up question. Do you have daughters?
Yes, I do have daughters.
How old are your daughters?
I have a 16-year-old and a 6-year-old.
Okay, so your daughter's 16. When she was 14, Heath, would you have been comfortable, would you have had absolutely no problem, your 14-year-old daughter going on a camp out where she would be sleeping in the same tent with a 17-year-old boy, no adult supervision, nobody else in the tent, camping together for the weekend? Would you be absolutely comfortable with that? No problems, no worries, no concerns.
You just said the buzzword, no adult supervision. The scouting program is exceedingly heavy with adult supervision.
Yeah, but there's no adult, and there's going to be no adult in the tent with your 14-year-old boy or your 14-year-old girl and the 17-year-old boy. There's going to be no adult in the tent.
It would depend on the circumstances. That's just what you're talking about is just kind of socially unacceptable to begin with.
Well, yeah, but it's not unacceptable by policy.
But I think you're kind of turning the tables on some of the situations. It's like this. Would I want him to be in a tent with someone that affirms that he is gay versus someone that is closeted? I mean, that's where it kind of gets into some sticky issue. If he's openly gay, then my son will know about that. And you have absolutely no problem with that, Heath. I got to tell you, Heath, that is absolutely irresponsible of you as a father to have no concern about that kind of dynamic. I mean, that's irresponsible of you as a dad. you're putting words in my mouth that aren't there. You're saying I'm not concerned. I am concerned.
Well, then why are you going to? Then why are you going to permit it? Then why would you permit it?
That we probably already have homosexual scouts already in the program.
Wait, no. We're
everywhere.
Yeah, wait a minute. But Heath, we're talking about a 17-year-old homosexual in the same tent with your 14-year-old son. Are you or are you not concerned about that?
Oh, you're asking me if I'm concerned about it. I'm always concerned about any situation such as that.
Yeah, but the scouts have just said, Heath, there's nothing you can do to stop that from happening. If you try to prevent that from happening, you're going to be guilty of discriminating against that scout. You're going to be the one that's going to be in trouble.
And I think you're putting words into the scouting program that aren't there. They're just affirming that scouts that feel like they're homosexuals or whatever. Again, at 17 years old, I think the sexuality on that's still fairly fluid. Again, I will add, we don't want scouts sexual under any circumstances.
No, wait a minute.
You're going to go off into the woods and do things with each other. And does that happen? It probably already does, and we try extremely hard to prevent that.
All right, well, I got to tell you, Heath, I mean, you having a 17-year-old experienced scout sleeping in the same tent with your vulnerable 14-year-old boy, that's absolutely no different than having an experienced 17-year-old male, heterosexual male, sleeping in the same tent with your 14-year-old girl. There is no responsible father in the planet, Heath, that would permit something like that to happen. Well, listen, I appreciate your call, Heath. Thanks for engaging in an extended conversation there. You listen to Focal Point on AFR Talk, 888-589-8840. Number to call if you want to join the program. A little bit more content we want to deliver. We'll take a couple more phone calls. Got a couple of more sound bites coming up right after the break, so don't go anywhere. Got a story here that there is a public school now near Washington, D.C. that is allowing Muslim students to take class time to go off and pray. Christian students can't do it, but Muslim students can. Focal Point AFR Talk. Back in 2.